What answers do the Buffalo Bills have for the Rams' biggest advantages? I'm covering that and a whole lot more today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino from the Draft Network, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Happy Wednesday to you, and thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day. And as a reminder to you, we are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. This episode is brought to you by Brightco Jewelry and Watch Insurance. Brightco brings you comprehensive, fast, and affordable jewelry insurance for as low as $5 per month. Check out your special offer for Locked On listeners and get covered in under 2 minutes at bright.co/locked on. That's bright.co/locked on. Well, folks, we got a lot to get to today. I want to talk about the choices the Bills made at captain. I want to talk about the cornerback rotation, some more details about the Rams. We're going to get to Dr. Kyle Trimble on the injury situation for the Buffalo Bills entering the game. I want to talk about some of the biggest challenges that the Rams have and the answers the Bills can counter with. And then, of course, my predictions for the game on Thursday night. So let's get into this. Let's start with the captains. Now, the Bills have appointed 9 captains. That's a lot of captains, but it does speak to the leadership that exists on this football team. And we'll talk about each of these 9 players, but you could think about a lot of other guys that are deserving of this honor as well. But let's talk about the players that are team captains for the Buffalo Bills in 2022. On offense, there's 3 of them. Josh Allen, for the 4th season in a row, you would expect your starting quarterback to be a captain. Obviously, Josh Allen is a shoo-in for that every single year. Stephon Diggs, for a 2nd season in a row, he is a team captain. And that's one of my favorite things about Stephon Diggs, how he's come over here and not only been a top performer on the field and given this team a lot of production, but the leadership that has come with it has been awesome. Mitch Morse on the offensive line, I love this. He's a first-time team captain, and I think he's earned this. Mitch Morse has been such a steady player for the Bills since he came over in free agency. And what I love about Mitch is how he's been able to perform at a high level despite very inconsistent guard play next to him. And not only has the caliber of performance at guard been not ideal, but it's been so many different players in and out of the lineup at guard. And so for as good as Mitch Morse has been, I have even a deeper appreciation for what he's been able to accomplish considering what's been next to him literally up until this point. And look, I'm really happy that the Bills seem to have the guard position figured out for this year with Roger Saffold and Ryan Bates next to him. And I'm excited to see what that can mean for Mitch Morse and how much more impactful he can be. And I love that he's going to have the C on his jersey. On defense, there's 4 team captains. Tremaine Edmonds for a 4th consecutive season. You've heard it time and time again. The Bills look at Tremaine as the leader of their defense. And the Bills' defense has been outstanding since he's become the starting middle linebacker. And how cool is that? Both of those 2018 first-round picks that the Bills had, Josh Allen and Tremaine Edmonds, are now team captains for a 4th consecutive season. Both the safeties, Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, a 3rd consecutive season for Poyer, a 2nd consecutive season for Hyde. I mean, those guys have been the identity of the Bills' defense since 2017. And those guys deserve to have the C on their jersey every single year. And then, of course, Von Miller. How about that? New addition. He gets the C on his jersey. And that's one of the things that we talked about with Von Miller back when he first signed, when we had Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos. I mean, this guy's not just a high-end player. He's a great locker room presence. And one of my favorite discussions I've heard about Von Miller specifically and his leadership came from Joe Miller on the Overreaction podcast on Monday this past week. So go to the Buffalo Rumblings podcast feed, listen to it. It's towards the end of the podcast. The whole thing's worth listening to, but really the end when he talks about Von Miller and leadership, and he's got some different quotes and pulls clips of Von Miller's press conference. You got to see that. Joe is a student of leadership, and I love how he talked about Von Miller from that regard. So I encourage you to go listen to that to hear more about Von Miller and his impact as a leader. Then a couple of special teams guys, Tyler Medikevich and Tywan Jones. I mean, those guys matter a lot to this football team. Let me put it like this. Tyler Medikevich and Tywan Jones played less in the preseason than Josh Allen. 0 snaps. That's how sure the Bills are about those two players as special teams aces, and how much they value what they bring from a leadership perspective. So I know that Medikevich and Jones aren't everybody's favorite players, but my goodness, does this team feel like they mean a lot to what's going on in this football operation. So those are your Bills team captains: Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Mitch Morse, Tremaine Edmonds, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, Von Miller, Tyler Medikevich, and Tywan Jones. One of the interesting storylines that's come about this week is the cornerback rotation. Now, we know Taron Johnson's going to be the slot. Dane Jackson's going to be one of the outside corners, but there has been indications from Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott that both Kyer Elam and Christian Benford are going to play on Thursday night. Sean McDermott said on WGR that both have earned that right to play, and they'll assess the performance and go from there. Now, obviously, if one guy is playing extremely well and there's a high level of comfort for how he's fitting in and performing, then he'll stay in the game, I'm sure. But it certainly appears that the Bills are going to give both of them an opportunity to play on Thursday night. Now, we've seen the Bills rotate under Sean McDermott at non-traditional positions, but it's always been a young guy with a veteran. In Cody Ford's rookie season at right tackle, he rotated with Ty Nsekhe. Matt Milano rotated with Ramon Humber before it was kind of his job. But what's unique here is that this time we have two young guys, right? Two rookies. And I would encourage you to resist the urge to allow this to create some level of panic regarding Kyer Elam, that the 6th round pick is challenging for playing time over him potentially. I don't think this says anything about Kyer Elam. We've seen enough Kyer Elam from at least what I saw at training camp, and then of course the preseason games, to feel comfortable about what he's done. To me, the story here is Christian Benford, and that as a 6th round pick out of Villanova, he's done enough to move the needle to earn this playing time. And you can look at that independently. You can compartmentalize here. This isn't necessarily a shot on Kyer Elam. It is about Christian Benford and what he's done with this opportunity. And that's why I've kind of speculated big picture-wise here that I don't see the path for Christian Benford to be on the field with any level of consistency with a healthy Tre'Davious White. And that's why I've speculated that, hey, maybe long-term the play here is he's a potential safety convert, right? A guy that can maybe one day step in for a Jordan Poyer. And I think that's a very realistic path. I don't think it's this year. The Bills need him at corner. But long-term, that might be the best way to get Christian Benford on the field. But for now, it'll be a rotation. And hopefully the Bills will gain some clarity on who the right player is to play the majority of the snaps. The last thing I want to mention here in this first segment before we get to Dr. Kyle Trimble of Banged Up Bills is talk about a little more specifically regarding the newness that is with this Rams football team. You know, we got into it a bit yesterday on the comprehensive primer, but I want to kind of highlight this a little bit more because I think this is a big area where the Bills have an advantage, where there's just more continuity with the Bills. And I know that I'm saying that despite a new play caller in Ken Dorsey, a couple new starters on the offensive line, a new wide receiver too, you know, potentially some upgrades on defense. But to me, the changeover is more significant on the Rams side. You look at last year, their starting left tackle was Andrew Whitworth. He's not around. Their starting right guard, Austin Corbett, and he's not around. Van Jefferson, who played 99% of the snaps in the Super Bowl, who's their number 3 receiver to go with Cooper Kupp and Allen Robinson, probably not going to be available on Thursday night. Odell Beckham Jr., not on this football team. Eric Weddle, starting safety last year, played 100% of the snaps in the Super Bowl against the Bengals, not on this football team. Von Miller, not on this football team. Troy Reeder, one of their starting linebackers, not on this football team, and they replaced him with Bobby Wagner, which I think will be an upgrade, but this is Bobby Wagner's first game with the Rams. Agbanya Okoronkwo, a rotational edge player. Sebastian Joseph Day, a nose tackle for them. And so as I look at those spots for this Rams football team, where they lost a player and now there's somebody new in that position, I challenge with this question, where did they get better? There's a ton of transactions for this team. And so maybe the answer there is Bobby Wagner over Troy Reeder. In fact, I would call that an upgrade. But I don't think you can honestly look at any of those other spots, left tackle, right guard, wide receiver, 2 and 3, safety, edge, backup nose tackle, and say, you know what? The Rams have a better player today than they did last year. And so part of my optimism for the Bills in this game is a Rams team that's certainly feeling out a lot of new players, stepping into big roles, and being mindful of losing high-end players like Whitworth, Corbett, Beckham, Von Miller. Those are a big deal. Those guys aren't walking through the door on Thursday night. I think the Bills catch this Rams team at a good time, week 1, before they've had an opportunity to acclimate and adjust, because the Rams have great coaches, Sean McVay, Raheem Morris. There's good coaches on this staff. They're going to get it right. They're probably going to win the division. They're going to make a deep postseason run again. They've got a lot going good for them. But I do think that the Bills catch them at the best possible time here in week 1. Folks, you've all seen those videos online of somebody proposing and they drop the ring or a piece of jewelry falls into the ocean. You don't want to be that guy, and you certainly don't want it splattered all over the internet. The guys at Brightco Jewelry Insurance will make sure you get a replacement for the full value of that ring, no matter if it's lost, stolen, or you just can't figure out what happened to it. Go to bright.co/locked-on. It's the fastest, easiest, and cheapest way to cover your butt with the best jewelry insurance in the business. These guys at Brightco are geniuses. They've made buying insurance for your engagement ring, your watch, or whatever so friggin' easy that you can get covered in minutes on your cell phone. You won't find a better deal on great coverage that's super affordable. Again, bright.co/locked-on. We all hate insurance, right? But the guys at Brightco turn the whole experience around, so it's probably the easiest you can do for yourself this week. There's no excuses. For $5 a month, you can get totally comprehensive coverage, and it won't take you more than 2 minutes on your cell phone. Check it out, bright.co/locked-on. Check out the videos on Brightco. They're really funny. They're super hilarious. And you can see for yourself at bright.co/locked-on. The NFL season is here, and I cannot wait to make entries over at Prize Picks. I've been enjoying the Prize Picks opportunities with college football, but as we know, NFL is king. Prize Picks is my favorite daily fantasy resource. Here's how it works. You pick 2 to 5 players, and if they will go score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. There's no competing against other players. It's just you versus the projections. And Prize Picks has literally any sport that you can imagine. The NFL, Major League Baseball, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, esports, NASCAR, tennis, you name it, they have it. They have cricket and Euro basketball, even disc golf and boxing. And entries can be made very quickly in 60 seconds or less. It's literally that easy. So download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. So if you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. Don't forget to use our promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. I'm joined now by Dr. Kyle Trimble. He's a doctor of physical therapy. He runs bangedupbills.com. The Twitter handle is @bangedupbills. He joins us each week to talk about the injury situation for the Buffalo Bills entering the game. And it is week one. We're on the heels, or the doorstep, of Bills Rams. And so it's time for our weekly conversation. For those of you that are new to the podcast, be introduced to Dr. Kyle Trimble. He gives us the goods when it comes to the injury situation. Let's get into it. We got a couple of guys on this injury report. Now, first of all, this looks pretty good. The Bills are pretty healthy entering this game, but there's a couple of guys that didn't practice yet this week. One of them being reserve offensive lineman Tommy Doyle, the other being tight end Quinton Morris. Doyle with a foot, he hasn't practiced all week. Morris with a hamstring, he hasn't practiced all week. What are your thoughts on those situations? What do we need to know?
Just give a little background. Tommy Doyle suffered a right foot injury back against the Indianapolis Colts. Couldn't find the exact time when he injured it, but it appeared to be at the end of the first half because I thought I saw him jumping around a little bit. Looks like he had his foot stepped on or something, and then he didn't come back out for the second half, though that was expected as he's been one of the roster locks for this season so far. So he hasn't practiced since then, has been seen in a walking boot and on a scooter at times. Been slowly ramping up with trainers off to the side, but he's been a do not participate for the past 2 days on Monday and Tuesday. I don't believe he's going to be playing on Thursday just because he hasn't been a part of the install and anything else with that. So I anticipate that he's going to be coming back sooner than later, week 2, week 3. He's going to need that ramp up time since he's lost the past 3 weeks due to not practicing. But it seems at this point like it's a journalist foot sprain, but the team had said that they didn't think the injury was going to be, major. That's also why he wasn't put on IR to begin the season. And then the second guy is Quinton Morris. He suffered a right hamstring strain on the 29th of August, right before cutdown day. It was fortunate that he made the roster, which helped him, get his place within the roster. But he actually had the injury occur as he was coming off the line, and Matt Barkley was throwing the ball, and John Scott of Spectrum News caught a great video of him kind of coming up lame. He had trainers attending to him, looking at everything. He's been also ramping up onto the side. He has a lot of kinesio tape all over the right leg and the hamstring and even calf area. So I don't anticipate him playing either just because he hasn't been part of the practices. And then they also have that nice back end, 11 days between week 1 and week 2. So those guys are more depth guys anyway. It's not going to be a huge loss, but still, you don't want to lose any depth guys in case those starters do go down.
Yeah, by the way, I was at the Colts game. I could tell you exactly when the Tommy Doyle injury happened because I saw him. He was down like on the turf, and then there was a scuffle like along the Colts sideline. And so I was sitting there like, oh, man, Tommy Doyle's hurt. And then all of a sudden there was a scuffle, and he gets up and he joins the fight. And then that's the last we saw of it. The next thing we know, he's got some type of injury and has been out since then. So if you're looking to go back, there's some context for you as to when it may have happened. So that's pretty much it for the actual Bills injury report. You got a couple of guys on here that have designations, but they're full participants in practice, and they're going to play. We're not concerned about Tim Settle or Jordan Poyer or Isaiah McKenzie. They're going to play on Thursday against the Rams unless some very unexpected setback happens between now and then. But I do want to take an opportunity here to talk about Tre'Davious White. And we've talked about him before on this podcast. I've gone on record as to saying that I think we see him after the bye in week 8 against Green Bay. What can you tell us about what you know about Tre'Davious White, and what is your expected timeline for him being back on the field?
So once again, to recap for those new listeners, Tre'Davious White tore his ACL the left side on Thanksgiving, had surgery 3 weeks later in mid-December. ACL recovery is taking anywhere from 9 to 12 months. Defensive players have to react to what's going on in terms of the play. They can't dictate the action. Certainly once they get out there and, get one-on-one, they can, dictate the play more, but they have to react to what they're seeing. So there was a lot of speculation, myself included, that Trey could be ready to go, not necessarily for week 1, but avoid the PUP list for a regular season and start practicing and ramping up that way. And from the way Leslie Frazier was talking about Brandon Beane bringing out or running out the clock, there's a chance he could. And I think they didn't have the amount of time to ramp him up to get him calloused, as Brandon Beane said, to make sure that he could get out there and be ready. I'm sure Tre'Davious White was chomping at the bit to get out there because he was looking pretty good during that first week of training camp that we saw him working out there. But there's that idea that you almost want to save him from himself in terms of you don't want to get him back out there, put all this pressure on him to perform because he's a former All-Pro. He knows what that level of play is expected to be. And if he's not going to be there, that puts any more pressure on a guy to say, hey, I got to play better. And then sometimes that can lead to other injuries, whether it's, God forbid, another ACL tear, or whether it was a hamstring, quad, calf, you name it, groin. So I think that they're playing it smart, keeping him out a little bit longer. The problem with starting on the PUP is he doesn't have the ability to practice with the team to get that callus up, as Brandon Beana talked about. So when he comes back after week 4 and he's able to start practicing, he's going to be in a great cardiovascular shape. He's been able to work on that the entire get-go, but that ramp-up time for tackling, getting on the defense, getting his legs underneath him, that's going to be a big determining factor. I like the week 8. I can see it also taking week 9, week 10. I believe, is it week 9? We're playing the Jets I think we're playing the Jets week 9, which I'm not a fan of because MetLife Stadium, if you recall last year, they had, in fact, the past few years, they've had some awful injuries with ACLs and just guys getting stuck on the turf there. I wouldn't want my first game back to be at the site where you see guys going down with injuries there. So do you bring him back week 8 in your own stadium? Do you hold him out to week 10 against Minnesota, I believe, in your own stadium? So there's a lot of variable factors there. I like the week 8 because it gives them 3 weeks ramp up time. That's what I thought he originally needed, but we're going to just kind of wait and see how he does in practice and how he's looking, if there's any limitations with that. So week 8 to week 10, I like week 8 though, and your prediction better.
I mean, there are some people that think before the bye is possible, and I don't. Like, I mean, is that just being really hopeful? I mean, to me, week 5, week 6, especially with the bye week being week 7, like I look, we can eat our words. That's totally possible, but I don't think the Bills are going to rush anybody back. Tre'Davious White's not going to be the exception. And he's got to practice. He hasn't practiced since last November.
I thought about week 6 too, but I'm like, that's just a really condensed timeline. Like you saved him another month. Yeah, I don't like that either. I mean, not that Green Bay is any better. I would say the Chiefs are probably worse than Green Bay in terms of talent with regards to, I'd rather go up against Green Bay, though you're playing with Aaron Rodgers, whole different things with that there. But you need to get back into the swing of things there. And 2 weeks of ramp up time like that. I mean, maybe they said there wasn't a setback. There might've been something we don't know that was going on, that why they led to that there. But I don't see why you would say, hey, we're going to put you on PUP for another month and then ramp you up back real quick. That just kind of goes counterintuitive of what they're doing. And then going off of that too, it just, after 9 months of recovery, you see there's an increased rate to re-tear, like for up to 2 years afterward, but it's not like you wait 10 months, 11 months, 12 months, the rates go down. It's kind of just evens out after 9 months. So that's why I thought he'd come back and avoid the PUP altogether. But I just feel like ramp him up whenever he's ready. If you need the extra week, it's like you already got your guys out there. They know what they want to do. So when you bring him back in, you bring him back in. So week 8, I think that's a great time, even later after that, if that's what they need.
You also said you had a few nuggets on the Rams side of things, which is interesting because the only guy really on the report is Van Jefferson for them. But I know you got some nuggets on Stafford and Ramsey, and I'm anxious to hear them.
Yep. So I'll go off the guy that is on the injury report, Van Jefferson. He's had 2 knee surgeries, and the one in the offseason and one during training camp. The training camp one was as he aggravated something in there. I haven't been able to find exactly what he had surgery on that he required that second procedure. My first thought is there's loose bodies in there, some cartilage damage, or if there was a small meniscus tear they need to clean out. Jeremy Fowler had said that he'd be back week 2 or week 3, and this was today. We're recording on Tuesday night. So he's always been considered day-to-day, has not practiced Monday or Tuesday of this week. I don't see him playing on Thursday just because he hasn't had that time to ramp up and hasn't practiced at all. But not having a weapon for Matthew Stafford is going to be beneficial for the Bills defense in that aspect. So I don't expect to see Van Jefferson unless he's going to be a decoy out there. And then touching on Jalen Ramsey, he had a AC joint surgery. He played through the injury all last year. It's a common injury to play through the separated shoulder, and he had tried to take care of it conservatively. Wasn't happening, and they waited till the last possible second to get it repaired. He had been slowly ramping up too, but he says he's going to be ready to play when he needs to play. I believe him when he says that, unfortunately, but I don't see him having any limitations on hitting guys come Thursday night. And then finally, Matthew Stafford. His elbow has been a lot of talk in the offseason because he received a PRP injection, and he's been limited during OTAs and offseason work, but they've been ramping him up throughout the training camp. Some of the different things they've said, it's been more related to baseball pitcher injuries that we've seen. So that leads me to believe it's like a flexor strain, like tendonitis, or it could be a partial UCL tear, or I've seen even bone spurs as talked about that. I would hope that you could better manage tendonitis and not being so much inflamed. It could be the partial UCL tear, which we did see with Josh Allen back in his rookie year because he got hit underneath his elbow there. But Josh's more or less just was a true sprain and not a tear, even though they're the same thing. There's minute differences. Anyway, this is something they're managing. They know that. They said they could talk, and Sean McVay had said that they were going to have him throw 50-50 passes if needed. They're not worried about it. I question how that first pass versus that 50th pass is going to look in terms of quality. If we're making them pass that much, that's, in my eyes, that's not a bad thing, because if they're having to play from behind and they're having to really push the ball down the field, I'm okay with that. Let him fatigue his arm out. Maybe we'll get an interception and we end the game that way. But I know it's a lot of talk about it, but they're pretty confident managing it. I know the Rams medical staff has been really good at getting guys back and ready. We saw it with Cam Akers last year. I just haven't gotten a great feel on what the injury is, but obviously it's not going to be so big that he's going to miss the game. So just want to see everybody go out there and play very well and avoid injuries on Thursday night.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and obviously looking forward to a lot of conversations. So with you here on the podcast, everybody make sure you follow him on Twitter, Dr. Kyle Trimble, at Banged Up Bills. Again, the website is bangedupbills.com. He provides expertise that I simply cannot. I can't sit here and talk about these deals like you can. So thanks for lending your expertise here on the podcast for all of Bills Mafia.
Thank you, Joe.
It's almost the start of the NFL season. I love this time of year. And if you're into sports betting or fantasy, you need a competitive edge to win. That's why I highly recommend the Elias Game Plan app. It's the ultimate sports betting and fantasy companion for the NFL, NBA, and MLB. Elias Game Plan is the only sports app from the most trusted name in sports stats, Elias Sports Bureau, who is the official statisticians of U.S. pro leagues, including the NFL. Their app lets you access team and player stats, head-to-head team comparisons, and Elias insights from the Elias Sports Bureau's research team. This app really is your one-stop source for player news and league-validated player stats and team records, expert game analysis for betting, building your fantasy team, and impressing your friends. It's perfect for any time of year. You can get player previews to help you draft the winning fantasy team and team previews so you know what to expect as the regular season kicks off. And with new player features like injury analysis available all the time, you can take your game to the next level. Elias is the most respected research team in the industry. They have quality information, which is key. So I'm glad they created this app for accurate data and important context. Here's what I love about the app. I can see the key injuries that have big impacts on the outcomes of games. I can also follow my favorite teams and players so I can quickly access all the news and updates for those players and teams. Again, the NFL season is right around the corner, so don't wait. Download the Elias Game Plan app today. And right now, I have a special offer when you subscribe. Get a 14-day free trial off a monthly subscription plan, but only if you use my promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Find Elias Game Plan Sports Betting in the App Store or Play Store today and use my promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Let's close this thing out today by looking at a few of the areas where the Rams have some advantages over the Bills and maybe some of the ideas that I have for the Bills to counter them. And then also my game predictions. I always give 5 predictions about every game, and I have those to deliver for you today regarding the Bills and Rams. So let's start with those Rams advantages. Like if I'm a Rams fan, this is what I'm thinking about that my team, the Rams, would have an advantage over Buffalo. And then I want to give you some of my thoughts about how the Bills can counter that. Well, the first thing I'm sure they're excited about is the Bills' cornerback situation. There's no Tre'Davious White. There's two rotating rookies in Kyer Elam and Christian Benford. And then, of course, Dane Jackson, who's gained some experience, but at the end of the day is not a very established player and was a 7th-round draft pick out of Pittsburgh a couple of years ago. And they have a great quarterback in Matthew Stafford, a great offensive mind in Sean McVay, and some good receivers in Cooper Kupp and Allen Robinson. And I think that they should look at that as an advantage. But what I would say from the Bills' perspective is that the Bills' scheme is more about spacing than anything. Of course, you want good player-for-player matchups. But this is about spacing and leverage, right? The Bills do a good job with how they space the field from a coverage perspective to create advantageous leverage that forces the opposition into challenging throws. And so that's why yesterday I talked a lot about just be your 111. This is one of those games where you play disciplined, stay leveraged, and force them to execute over and over and over and over and over again to score points against you. And more times than not for the Bills, the scheme wins. And yes, they do have a lot of inexperience at corner, but they still have Taron Johnson. You still have two really good coverage linebackers in Matt Milano and Tremaine Edmonds, and you have that safety tandem of Poyer and Hyde. And I think that will help the Bills overcome what's lacking right now at corner. So that's my first thought. Number two, I'm sure the Rams fans are very excited that they have Aaron Donald, and they should be. And like I said yesterday, if I had the answer of how to stop Aaron Donald, well, I'd probably be an NFL head coach right now. Nobody's figured this out. But I will say this from the Bills side of things. This is clearly, and I think clearly the best Bills interior offensive line that they've had under Sean McDermott, and the best offensive line coach that they have, and Aaron Kromer, who has familiarity with the Rams. He was on that staff for 3 seasons. So you have Saffold, Morrison, Bates as your interior offensive line. That's the best the Bills have had ever under Sean McDermott. One of those players, like I mentioned, Roger Saffold, was a teammate of of Aaron Donald for 5 years. Aaron Kromer was the O-line coach for the Rams for 3 seasons. So while Aaron Donald's amazing and he's a game wrecker, you feel somewhat decent about what you have to counter that with the quality of talent the Bills have in the interior offensive line. That talent, including experience against Aaron Donald in a Roger Saffold, and then, of course, a coach and Aaron Kromer that knows the Rams very, very well. If I'm a Rams fan, I'm very excited that I have Jalen Ramsey to counter Stephon Diggs. And first of all, we've never seen Josh Allen shy about throwing the ball to Stephon Diggs regardless of who's covering him. And so if Josh Allen likes the look, he's going to throw the ball to Stephon Diggs even if Jalen Ramsey is defending him. But from like a deeper perspective that I want to get into with the Bills is the Bills have more options than Stephon Diggs in the passing game. Gabriel Davis, Isaiah McKenzie, Dawson Knox, getting these running backs going. And I think while Ramsey, let's just say Ramsey locks up Diggs, the Bills have so many other playmakers that they can involve to create offense and keep Josh Allen going. But I do expect Stephon Diggs to make plenty of plays in this game, even if Jalen Ramsey is defending him. And the last thing that I want to mention here before I get to my predictions is this, I guess, storyline that's come out about Sean McVay being 5-0 coaching the Rams in week 1, right? Season opening games, Sean McVay is 5-0. All right, cool. That's a great stat. Well, who'd they beat? They didn't beat anybody. 2017, his first year, they beat the Colts, who finished the season 4-12 and fired their head coach, Chuck Pagano, after the year. In 2018, they beat the Raiders, who finished the season 4-12, and it was John Gruden's first year on the job. In 2019, they beat the Panthers, who finished the season 5-11, and Ron Rivera, their head coach, was fired after the season. In 2020, they beat the Dallas Cowboys, who finished the season 6-10, and it was Mike McCarthy's first year on the job. And then last year, they beat the Bears, who were 6-11. Matt Nagy was fired after the season. I'm pretty sure Andy Dalton was a starting quarterback for that team. So they're 5-0 under McVay in the opener, but they beat the 4-12 Colts, the 4-12 Raiders, the 5-11 Panthers, the 6-10 Cowboys, and the 6-11 Bears. I mean, you go out there and take care of your business. I'm not trying to take anything away from it, but I do think there's important context to keep in mind before we sit around and say, wow, Sean McVay with a whole year to prepare is impossible to defeat. On the flip side, McDermott, he's 3-2. All 3 wins have come against the New York Jets. 2 losses. One was against the Ravens in Nathan Peterman's first start, right? Or not his first start. He started the opener. Josh Allen took over at halftime. It's a massacre. I mean, do you want to hold that against McDermott? And then last year against the Steelers, where the team was pretty flat offensively, but defensively they were on point in week 1. Had a special teams blunder and, we're flat on defense. Or flat on offense. So I don't necessarily know that there's a whole lot to take away here. There's a lot of context that goes into it. And I don't know that that would be something I would cling too hard to if I were a Rams fan, in that McVay's 5-0 in season opening games. All right, it's prediction time. Let's get to it. I've got 5 predictions for you regarding the game. And I, for people who are new this year, I do this every single week. And my objective here isn't to give you like softball predictions. I want to try to give you predictions that I think are indicative of how the game script could unfold. And so I have 4 predictions about the game. And then, of course, the last prediction is the result of the game. Number 1, my first prediction is that the winner of the turnover battle wins the game. If it's tied, if they have the same amount of turnovers, the Bills win. I said this on the primer yesterday, where this is one of those games where I think it's pretty close. The Bills are on the road. The Rams are, the defending Super Bowl champions, and the margins are pretty slim in a game like this. And I think a decisive factor is the turnover battle. And usually the turnover battle is a decisive factor, but in a game like this, even more. I don't think you can afford to lose the turnover battle and win this game. I don't think it'll happen. So the winner of the turnover battle wins the game. If it's tied, the Bills win. Number 2, I am predicting a sack for Von Miller and Ed Oliver. I think they both get sacks in week 1. And that's somewhat of a bold prediction because Matthew Stafford was only sacked 30 times last year. 17-game season, only 30 sacks. That's not even twice a game. But I like what Von Miller offers in terms of his familiarity with this offensive line. I like his matchup against Havenstein at right tackle, and I like his matchup against Joseph Noteboom at left tackle. And then Ed Oliver, I think, should have some good opportunities against Coleman Shelton there at right guard to get some wins here. So put me down for a sack for Miller and Oliver. Number 3, I predict that Josh Allen has more passing yards than Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford was really productive last year. He averaged 287 yards per game. Josh Allen only 259 yards per game. But I think the Bills just have more depth with their weapons. And I like some of the opportunities that the Bills will have against this Rams back 7 to slot the football and create some big plays in the passing game. I think Josh Allen has more passing yards than Matthew Stafford. Number 4, Stephon Diggs does not lead the team in receiving yards. I think Stephon Diggs will have a reasonable game, catch 4, 5, 6 passes, but I don't think he'll have the most yards. And it's not just because of Jalen Ramsey, and I think that he can erase Stephon Diggs. I just think the matchups are going to be better for other players. Talked about this yesterday. Dawson Knox against slow safeties and slow linebackers. Isaiah McKenzie against a slow slot corner in Troy Hill. Gabriel Davis against David Long. I like these matchups for the Bills, and these are matchups that I think that Josh Allen should be really interested in challenging. You want to keep Diggs going for sure, but I think he won't be the most productive Bills weapon in the passing game on Thursday night. And then lastly, do the Bills win the game? I do think they win this game. The Bills enter this game as favorites, as road favorites, 2.5-point favorites. The Rams have what the Bills want, Super Bowl championship, and they're going to watch that banner get hung up on Thursday. Bills are on a mission. I think they have a deeper roster, a more complete roster. Now they got to go meet the moment and do it, but I think the Bills have the right makeup to beat the Rams, especially in week 1, with all the new stuff that the Rams are trying to incorporate into their football team. I think it's a good time to play the Rams, and I think it's a bad time for the Rams to play the Bills. So I'm predicting a win for the Bills here against the Los Angeles Rams on Thursday night. All right, folks, tomorrow is going to be the crossover preview. Myself and Travis Rogers from Locked On Rams are going to hook up to talk all about this football team from both sides of the equation. So you have that to look forward to carry you to kickoff. And, of course, our podcast on Friday will be a recap of the game against the Rams. Hopefully our first Victory Friday of the season. So make sure that you are subscribed. We'd love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to catching up with you again tomorrow.